Welcome to Permission to Evolve. I'm your host, Brandon Thielk. I'm a performance and life coach. I'm joined by my co-host and producer, Holly Deschenes. So this is a special after Christmas, before the new year. We're together in Chicago. So I'm originally from the Chicago area, so this is cool. We're going to be filming some content today. So yeah, I just want to kind of go back to my roots a little bit, and you can't see it in the camera, but we have a Michael Jordan picture above us. So he was a huge inspiration for me growing up here in Chicago, in the 90s with the Bulls. It was a pretty special time. I read all his books and I just soaked up all the information because he just operated on such a different level. Today we're going to be getting into this idea of permission to believe. Your ability to believe in yourself is the number one tool we need to really overcome a lot of challenges. We always talk about trying to pull deeper things from yourself. And so we want to have this well of, I know I can do this. I just have to stick with it. I just have to keep putting in the work and good things will happen. We're really just going to go through this process of like how you come to believe things. And it's always about dismantling your past and those internal conflicts that don't support what you're trying to accomplish. So super excited about this. Yeah, Chicago is obviously a special place for me. I'm excited to spend the day together and see what unfolds here and yeah, get running with it. So
Yeah, it is exciting. It's always more fun to do these in person. Also, in terms of recording a podcast, I think just the in-person dynamics always helps and without the delay and all of that. And just to call out the poster, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll pan up to that before we leave. So at the end of the podcast, if you want to see it. But yeah, I like the topic of permission to believe. I think belief is sometimes the hardest part. If you think about kind of the little bit of the series we've done over this will be the fourth one. Belief can be the hardest part, especially when you're in a place where the tangible results are not showing yet.
Yeah, I mean, you really, to make anything happen, it is really about aligning with it. And yeah, you gotta be connected to some sort of vision. If that's not happening, because you're trying to make the unknown known, or you're trying to make this thing happen that's not tangible, we have to rewire to be in support of that. And so that's it. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. If you haven't lived something yet, there's no data in your nervous system for that. It's always going to feel uncomfortable. We're just trying to climb our way to that 95 to 100% of like, I really believe in that this is possible for me. And sometimes we might be starting off at like 20. We might be pretty low on the range of, because nothing in my life looks like this. So I have to start to familiarize myself with it. And then have to start to engage with it. And I just keep building towards more and more. I think most people give up too early. They don't give things an actual shot. And that means that full commitment is just the trusting that you'll figure it out over a span of time. It's not like this needs to happen right now stuff. Because as soon as we put that on that, now there's all these pressures that we're adding to it. And that's what really stalls us out. We talk about protecting your energy a little bit of like, I don't share things with people that haven't created things in their life, right? Because they're automatically going to try and shut it down or tell me why it's not possible. And those things can be pretty damaging early in the process. If we're just trying to figure out what it means for us first, we do need to nurture and protect that, and opening up too early, that can kind of kill your dream pretty quickly. I was talking about the gauntlet where, as you set out on these paths, you generally do get backlash. You get people that are telling you why you shouldn't do something, and you should play it safe and have backup plans and all these things. And that's just not the nature of it. It is like the journey is to refine you so you get deeper into your self-belief. And that's when you stop caring less and less what other people think. And so it's a journey, and it's by overcoming the challenges, that's you like really conquering yourself. That's really starting to, because once you like start to stack some wins of like, oh, I've overcome all these things, now it kind of just seems like common sense. If I just follow the path, it's going to add up to things, it's just sticking with it. It's that persistence that we always talk about, where you got to do something. You might as well do something you enjoy. You might as well do something that's interesting to you. You might as well do something that that requires more of you. So it's about building your capacity to hold things too. I remember starting off as a coach, I had all these, I was like, oh, I'm going to build like all these different businesses and all these things. And in my 20s, I didn't have the capacity for that. I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have any of those things. But, really now it's starting to make sense where I just have this skill set that I can apply to many different things. It's by following the path and sticking with it that you really start to discover how these things are possible. And then, yeah, the belief part just kind of naturally fills in where that's not that far of a stretch for me anymore. So I can see how those things can happen.
I think you work with a number of triathletes. So as you were talking through that, right, where you're stacking the wins and building up, it really made me think of following a training plan a little bit, right? How if you set out for a big goal, whatever that is for you, some people it's an Ironman or whatever that might be, the way you get there is over a year of doing the workouts and putting in the miles and doing the thing. It's not a whole lot different. And then it becomes real for you on the day.
Actually, I just had this conversation with your husband, Aaron, a couple of weeks ago where he's like, yeah, when you like tell somebody I'm going to do a triathlon, they're just like, oh, like that's impossible, right? Because when you like think about it, it's this major thing, right? But if you find a coach, somebody that knows what they're doing, it's just like, oh no, these are the steps you can get there. That's why support's so helpful. Somebody that's done it before, that knows what they're doing. I would say like this in the permission to believe, your bar is much higher than you think it is. A lot of people, when you're just starting off, like, of course we might have lower goals, but I always I want this like big, massive vision that I have to like grow into, that I don't want like small stepping stones. Those come naturally from the big vision. And I look back to my baseball career, throwing 75 to getting into the mid 90s. It was like this gradual process, right? But it was just like continually working at things, continually, solving the problems. You start to see how it's possible for you. And so it's a long stretch of time, and there's experts in every field that have done what you want to do, and they can help you start to cultivate that belief system that's going to support what you're trying to accomplish. We want to play it safe where it's like, oh, I'm going to just have the smaller goal, but a lot of times that's not like super exciting, and that's things we need the excitement. We need like if I can make this happen, that would be the greatest thing in the world. That's what we're really trying to accomplish, because that like pulls a lot more out of you. We want this thing that's like scary. And it's always just adjusting the timeline, just knowing that if it's drastically different than your current life, it is going to take some time to grow into it, but it's going to be an extremely rewarding process, because there's going to be tons of breakthroughs along the way. There's going to be all these instances where you didn't think something was possible, but now it's just your natural life that you live in. This kind of just happened by me following the process. And so it doesn't have to be these dramatic things overnight. And we think it has to be, and that's what kills it. So it's about knowing that these things do take time, but we want to enjoy the process, because that's where the rewards come. The finish line is kind of an afterthought most of the time. It's just like, oh, okay, now what's next? It's just getting to that place of, once you get the rhythm of, okay, I set this intention of who I want to become. And as I start to become that, now my mind expands so much where I start to believe like a bunch of other things are possible for me from that vantage point. So it's really about just getting yourself going, staying consistent with things, and then always just paying attention to what you feel and updating your dream along the way. It's not going to stay the same. It's going to shift and change over time. As you mature, as you like get into the details of whatever you're trying to accomplish, it's going to reveal to you like these new directions. You shouldn't know exactly where you're going to end up from your starting point. That's just what you're aiming for, but along the way, the gaps kind of fill in.
So the triathlon or the sports sort of reference, I think is a logical and like easy leap to make in terms of how you get to the point of belief. But let's talk a little bit about things that are less straightforward, maybe, in terms of getting to that belief. Because I think that's the part for me personally, in terms of struggling. Like, I can follow a plan. If you lay it out, I will show up every day and I will put in the work. But sometimes there are things that are not as obvious as a training plan, and being able to believe to the vision of those things.
Well, and that's where I think we look at like creatives and like entrepreneurs and people like that, where, it's this like outside the box thinking where you're actually just tasked with creating new things all the time. It's not this structure. It's more based on what you feel. It's like, oh, I'm like following my heart and this is like leading me down this road. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm like stumbling my way through it, and the messiness kind of like starts to come together at a certain point. And that's the thing, is our logical mind wants these like very tangible stepping stones, but those can also be limiting. We could be forcing things that aren't there. We can be attached to a goal or a dream that like isn't really valid for us anymore. Because I started on this path, like I have to keep it this way. And so that's the evolving part, is just allowing it to continually shift and change. And so we're in tune with things like based on how it feels to us. So yeah, if I feel like I'm hitting a wall, if I feel like things are stagnating and I no longer have the motivation, I might need some adjustments. I might need to divert it to a different path. That's kind of that piece of like going back to last week where we're talking about creation. It's allowing things to develop moment to moment rather than it needs to look this certain way because this is what I set out to do. Let's say you start from somewhere, you have to have some general idea of what you're shooting for, but that's like pretty much never what it's going to look like. It's just staying present with stuff. And that's it. Everything starts in the mind. I have to start to conceptualize what this is going to be. And I have different templates I can work with. Like in every industry, there's like, this is how things are done. But then it's just like you bring it over to, well, like, how would I like to do it? Right? You're not going to reinvent the wheel. You might upgrade it in some ways. That's what entrepreneurship is. It's finding better ways of doing things that we all know, right? And, even if you have an artist, there's like the different styles, right? But you take inspiration from different things and then you kind of package it into, this is like my version of it. That's just like the self-discovery part is, you get inspired, you get these ideas, and then it's up to you to like follow those. And you want to pursue those and see where they lead, because it might not lead to a finished product, but it might give you important lessons that you need to carry forward. So it really is this like interesting journey where, it's just continually evolving things to see what happens from it. Because when you're creating, you're trying to make something that's intangible and make it tangible. That is this process of play, right? Not taking it so serious, allowing it to reveal itself to you. And then, when you strike the gold, it's usually exciting and it feels like true to you. And it feels like, it creates this like deeper well of like, you really feel like an individual rather than like, I'm just doing what everybody else does. It takes a lot of courage to do that stuff, especially early on in the process. There's always a lot of insecurities there that we have to work through. But, if you look at people that have gone that full journey of making something new, those are the people we like, that inspire us and like we really appreciate is they like were trailblazers. They like did things differently and they took what was being done and they made it better. And that's never an easy process, but it's a super cool, rewarding one. But when you're creating something that's not existing yet, you do have to continually build your own self-belief where the critics or the opinions of others like isn't really messing with it anymore, because it takes really that strength to bring something to its fruition and do it your own way and do it you're on your own terms and like all those things. And with coaching, yeah, there's a lot of things I disagree with. There's a lot of things I hate how they're done. If I ever find myself stepping into those other lanes, it like never feels right to me. I'm just like, oh no, I don't like that. I might take a little part of it and be like, well, yeah, this might work. But by and large, a lot of these things, it's my own version. And I've taken a lot of time to really get clear on those things. And I'm still stumbling through it. Like I don't have a playbook, but like, I also don't want one. Because it's this evolving journey of like, it's just always adding up to more and more, and I don't know what it's going to be yet. But so there's a point where you start to put structures in place and create a lane, but there's a period where it is just about getting really connected and figuring out what that's going to be. It's not, you never have that clarity from the start. It is this ability to wander and see unknown and really discover what that is. And then that's where you start to put your imprint on everything, is when you've kind of made it all your own. Now it's distinct and different.
There's a stage in both creation and belief that starts to involve other people a little bit that maybe can knock you off course or can dampen the passion or any of those sorts of emotions where you're like, well, crap, maybe I can't do this. Maybe I made a bad decision. Let's talk about like finding your way back or believing through those moments.
Well, there are like these interesting stages where, okay, I'm off on this path of like finding out who I am through whatever this is. And that's a very like individual process. But there's a point where that becomes limiting, right? Where it's just like, do you think we are here to depend on each other for support in certain ways? I think it's, oh, if we just stay in this is my baby and I need to protect it all the time, that keeps it small. So I think that's a necessary part of it is to get that strength. But once you get like the clarity in yourself, it's like to bring it into the world and to share it on a higher level does require other people, right? And yeah, I mean, I'm a creative thinker. Like I suck at the logical stuff, right? It's just like that's a deficiency in me where like I recognize I need more structure, and I'm probably not going to be creating most of that. I probably need help with some of that, right? It's just like recognizing like, okay, if I really want to continue to grow and expand, there is going to be a point where I need to include other people and also kind of soften my judgment about things needing to be a certain way, right? Because if I'm bringing other people in and now there's different opinions, and then, oh, am I like losing myself in other people's opinions again? That's a tricky thing, but you kind of build the core of it, and then, you find other people that have their own unique point of view that like adds to what you're trying to do. That actually amplifies it, right? It's about like letting go of the protection and surrendering a little bit towards this idea of like, I don't know everything. Like you can't know everything. You can't be a master at everything either. And so it's that coming out of your shell part where a lot of people that build businesses, it is usually, oh, I can't, there's no good help out there. There's all these like limiting beliefs about like why it has to stay small. That's it can work, but it's like it probably won't grow to what you want it to be if you're not able to loosen the reins at a certain point. We want to identify people that really resonate with our vision and can support it. And then it's also getting to the place of understanding, it's not all about you. Like everybody has goals and a vision for their life generally, or some version of it. And so it's like, how can we combine these things to work together, right? You build a supportive system, because, that is a limiting belief that keeps you small is it has to be all on me all the time. Even with an athlete, like I can't trust my training with other people. Like I can't, my body work, whatever it is, it's like, no, like if you have one bad experience with that stuff, you might shut it down and be like, okay, I have to do it by myself again. So it's about continually like opening it up, but like finding the right people that can support you in your vision. And it's a trial and error process, but we get really good at that when we're really in tune with ourselves. You'll pay attention to how things feel, and when you interact with other people, like what their message is, like if you see alignments, if you see kind of the same spirit, like that's like, those are good signs of like, yeah, there might be something here that I need to open up. But it's not like you just like let everything in. It's more of build filters that like anyone I'm bringing into my circle, they kind of have to pass through the filters of like, is their mindset right? Like, is their life together? Do they carry themselves properly? All these different things have to align in order for it to be a supportive system. And it can be a very difficult process. And that is because that is a risk. That's a quick way to ruin anything beautiful is to bring people in that don't appreciate it. We want to be selective. We want to be conscious about every step of the process. And that is a version of protecting it, is you're loosening your reins on it, but you're opening your mind about okay, what would actually be a good fit for these things rather than just having the door shut.
All that makes sense. What about the criticism side of things that could come in, and it might be family, friends, people like that, where you suddenly have a big vision for like where you want to take something, and that it could be them in real life, or it could be the voice of them in your head that goes, well, who do you think you are to do XYZ in that way?
If something affects you, there is part of you that believes it. Right? That's the hard truth. Yeah, because if somebody said something to me and there wasn't part of me that like deep down didn't believe that, like it would just kind of roll off my shoulders, right? It's like getting to the place of, oh, the criticism is actually for me to refine myself. It's actually for me to get stronger in my belief because they're just like mirroring to me like the things that I hear in the back of my mind. And, I have these emotional reactions to them. It's kind of seeing that's part of the process. And that's why I call it the gauntlet, is because it's just like early on, like that's really all that's happening is people are like showing you what you don't believe about yourself. It comes from our programming. It comes from like childhood. It comes from, the beliefs that our parents taught us and, society. Because the thing is like, hey, you're supposed to go to school, start a family, get a house. Like all the tracks are pretty well set up, but all that stuff's very well supported. So as long as you're on that track, like usually people aren't saying much. But when you're doing something different, if somebody's on that track, they're not going to understand what you're doing. But like we all have that programming, because that's how society runs is you generally have to function within it. So we all have that wiring that supports the normal path. When people like criticize us branching out, like that's bringing to the surface like all the programming that we have within ourselves about that, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm not going to be accepted if I do it differently, or I'm going to embarrass myself, whatever it is. It's just like we really do have this group mentality about some specific things that make it hard to move through this stuff. And so that's that first stage is like, hey, when you do this, like there is going to be all that messaging, but your reaction to it, that tells you that you have it inside you, that they're just telling you what you already currently believe. And that's why you have a reaction to it. And so that's why we go deeper into it and try and unlock that stuff and rewire it so that our system just doesn't care anymore. Definitely in my 20s, like I experienced that like constantly. I thought everybody like hated me all the time because I was doing like all these drastically different things. But now I don't even care anymore. It's like I've like rewired it all where it's like not even there. But once in a while, I'll get plugged into like trying to think what other people are thinking about me and that kind of stuff. But it's just like at a certain point, it loses its power and it kind of feels a little bit dumb. That initial phase when you're branching out, that it feels so painful. And I've had to do a lot of cleanup work of like, yeah, I mean, I felt like in my 20s, like everybody was like constantly like shaming me and thought I was a terrible person because I didn't just go work at a corporation or something. And it was just like all this stuff that I was probably like taking on a lot just on my own. I don't know if like it was actually happening to the degree I thought it was, but there's times where I felt like I was crazy and I didn't know what I was doing and why am I doing this? Because it is, you feel so alone with it. You feel like nobody understands you. You feel like you get these like intense reactions from a lot of different people that you like love. It's very confusing, but that's like to refine you. That's to like shed all those beliefs that it's the performance beliefs. I have to do these things in order to get love. We learn all that stuff growing up. And so if I branch out, like I'm going to disappoint other people or people are going to be upset with me and I'm not meeting their expectations anymore. That's what that tension feels like. And generally, once again, when we're a kid, we internalize everything about ourselves. If I disappointed somebody, something's wrong with me. It just piggybacks on all that stuff. And so the initial stages is really about shedding those false beliefs because they're just things you've internalized at a young age to try and make sense of the pain and the disappointing others and the expectations you didn't meet and not lining up perfectly with what society tells you and like all that stuff. You do have to shed that stuff along the way. And initially you like fight against it. It's like you kind of pride yourself on being different and you kind of need that. But when you're like priding yourself on being different, you kind of just throw away like everything from the other life when, it's really about an integration of it doesn't have to be all or none. It could be a mixture of things. It's just, okay, I'm here to sift and sort through things and decide what's right for me. And that means I'm going to take the pieces I like, just from like normal life and I can integrate that into my life. It's not all bad. But like when I'm feeling like I have to fight against everything to maintain my individuality, you kind of have to armor up and you get this chip on your shoulder and you feel like everybody's against you when, usually they're not. It's, most people are generally worried about whatever's going on in their life. But as you do blaze a new trail, there are times where that does bring out insecurities in other people. Sometimes, yeah, you can get some backlash. You can get some mean things sent your way. And that's all to strengthen you. That's all to like build this resilience and capacity. It's about continually realigning your beliefs to support what you want. And that's things, if you took the normal track, like you don't have to do much updating to your software. It's all supported. Oh yeah, just do what everybody else does. But as soon as I branch out for that, now it's like, I'm going to be going through a lot of self-doubt. I'm going to go through a lot of these ideas of questioning whether it can work out or those things. But it's like, once I like separate long enough and I start to really put the work in and I get really internally focused on starting to build something that's true for me, all these other things just start to unwind and fall away because we get more attached to what we want than what's been. It's that back and forth that keeps the old beliefs at play. And so the full commitment is like the full commitment to figure it out over a long period of time of like, I know if I stick with this, things will work out. And that's where we just continually renew and update our vision to where we're currently at. Because I might have started that vision from like fighting against everybody else, but as soon as that part falls away, I might be like, okay, well, what's actually right for me? I'm no longer pushing against the old stuff because we might just be doing that out of spite. So it's about just continually refining and cleaning up your thought processes around what you're doing. And if you're really putting in the work, you see the path to it. You see like the progress. You see like how you get better all the time. That's what makes you more valuable is when you have like a highly developed skill. So it's just putting in the work regardless. And then the opinions of others, that's really that first stage. It's probably a couple of years generally, but you can move through it faster if you just kind of see it for what it is. It's just, okay, everybody's operating in this way of being. I'm doing something different. They don't understand it. And so they're going to be telling me about my own programming. And that's what hurts is like that stuff gets brought to the surface so we can let it go and connect further to the beliefs we want rather than the beliefs that we were given.
There are a couple things as you were talking through that I thought of. One is this quote I heard, I don't remember who said it, but it goes that most people are not against you, they're just for themselves. And that was a reframe that really helped me in terms of when you think about that time frame of things feeling like people are against you. The other thing I thought of as you were talking, the kind of picture I got in my head is, and I don't know if they still have to do this today, and I am a Mac girl, so this is a Windows reference. But do you remember when you used to have to defrag a computer?
Not really, but
Well, it's like that.
I've heard the term before.
Yeah, like a thing in there. It's like a cursor thing that goes across the screen and it's like wiping. I don't understand the technology of exactly how it works.
Okay,
So like
yeah,
bear with me, but like it's
I know what you're talking about.
wiping the
Yeah.
stuff out of the code of your computer. Anyway, that visual came into my head as you were talking through that of like, oh, this getting to this level is sort of like you're defragging your personality.
Yeah. It's just,
Yeah.
you didn't have a choice with so many things. It's just like, this is the way it is. Right.
Yeah.
And it's very like cultural based too. Like if you grew up in a different country, like they have their ways of doing
Right.
things. It's just all these default things you're given. And a lot of them are in direct conflict with you trying to do something different. And it's just kind of knowing that that's part of the process. If I'm like fighting against something constantly, that's where I hit burnout and exhaustion is because it's just like, rather than just aligning with what I want, I'm looking at this thing and like pointing out all the reasons I hate it. And that's plugging me into negative emotion that wears out my nervous system. The alignment is actually what creates more ease is like, we just like, oh, like, yeah, rather than having to fight somebody, I just continue to focus on what I want. Right. And I think in the initial stages, we feel like we have to fight everybody, but it is a point of like surrendering the battles. They're just opinions. Like, what are they don't actually hurt me unless I give them attention, unless I feel like because it hurts our ego to be like, this person said something to me I didn't like or whatever. I mean, we have the body reaction and all that, and it all feels very real. It is just really this process of like, not much of it really matters. And the time I spent here in Chicago, that's where I really hit a wall with a lot of things. I'm like, I can't like carry these things with me. I can't like the ego battles and all that stuff. Like I have to shed it all. This is where I went into like deep meditation for many hours a day for quite a long time where it's okay. My software is just like, it's not letting things go. Like I feel like I'm at war with everybody or whatever. And I have to let it go and let it fall away. You're just choosing not to participate anymore. And you're not feeding it energy anymore. Okay. So if you're not feeding it energy, it just starts to unwind and die off. And once again, it's like we're wired for these things, especially like with an athletic background. You're like taught about, competition and like I don't even like competition doesn't like exist for me anymore. Like I just like don't care. I'm not like fighting against anybody. I'm just like doing what I want to do. It is just like letting all those ideas go because, it's built on survival and scarcity and yeah, like if I do something different and I'm like an outcast, that used to mean death back in the day, right? Like we needed groups to survive. It's just kind of seeing these things for what they are. They're the games that we have to grow past them because they do eat up a lot of energy when I give my focus to that stuff. And that's nice. When I'm changing drastically, it's like, okay, everybody in my life is getting a different version of me, right? Now I'm no longer playing the same roles. I'm no longer meeting their expectations the way they wanted. And yeah, if I'm like the people pleaser or the person that like makes everybody feel okay, and I'm no longer doing that, now they're like left sitting with their negative emotions, right? They're probably not going to be too happy about that. It's just this refusing to participate on those levels anymore is what allows you to really free yourself up and then get clear on what you want, and that's it. It's part of the process. We're all given this starting place. It is this, we do have the ability to rewrite the software to see it differently, but it is working through the negative emotional reactions we have to things where that's where we have to surrender that because that's what pulls us off track constantly is when I get triggered by something. Now I have like a coping mechanism to deal with that. And that's all going to be out of alignment with what I want. Right. And a lot of people, they just stay with the chip on their shoulder thing where they're still fighting the battle, even if there's no battle left. They just kind of think you have to do that all the time when you really don't. Because once again, like it's your attention to that. That's what fuels that fire, but it's exhausting. Like, cause you don't really need to fight anybody. That's just our mind. That's just the ego thinking that these are the ways it's done when you can surrender that stuff and you just align with your vision and you create peace around it where it's just this expression of you. I'm not like really competing with anybody else. There was like a phase where I grew out of a lot of stuff and I have like 3 older brothers and all that stuff. So there's competition there and and I'm just like, I had like surrendered the competition, but then I felt like they were trying to still compete with me in different ways. And I would have reactions to that. And that just continues to like cleanse your system of like, oh, I'm not competing with them. There's no, I don't need to be right. I don't need any of this stuff. It's just, I just stay on my path. That's really the answer for everything is just the ability to like let so many things go that the belief just is like naturally where I don't feel like anybody stopping me. I don't feel like I have to like win anything. It's just like, I just keep getting better and better at what I do. And that's eventually going to pay off. And as I like really gain the confidence of what I'm doing, it's like, you don't even like the belief part. You don't even think about it. It's just like, oh, I just go do it.
It's making the thing inevitable
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah.
But let's talk about detaching from the timeline, because part of what you're saying is like, we're just going to keep doing the thing. We're going to get better and better over time, which means you have to let go of any sort of expectation of when it's going to happen, which can be hard for people. I would say in American culture for sure, but especially if what you're doing today has you sitting in a corporate setting where you have quarterly earnings calls or sales goals that you have to hit or any of those things that do have a time-bound thing attached to them.
Well, I mean, the thing is, you kind of got to know what game you're playing. If you're in the corporate arena, that okay, these are the standards. This is how it is. You almost have to get to this place of acceptance of it, and knowing that a little bit of it's like it's artificial. Like that's not really the natural process of things, but it's just like okay, we need these results for shareholders and all that stuff. This is the game I'm playing, and so that's thing is it's more of that, yeah, team process of like, okay, I play this role like within this system and this is what we have to do and we're all working together. And so the detachment piece is what allows us to perform better in that is we're just like seeing it for what it is and we're taking the judgment out of it, where it's like, it's not good or bad. It just is. And I'm going to play this game as long as it suits me. But, it's like, if I ever get tired of it, if I ever get burnt out on it, if I ever get to the point where I can't do it anymore, yeah, maybe there's something else out there for me that's got a different pace to it, that's got a more authentic feel for me. And you see that commonly, career corporate people, like generally they're like, okay, I'm just going to go be a consultant or something. I'm going to like do my own thing because like I'm tired of the rat race. And that's really what it is, right? And so it's just like knowing that if you're in the system, there's like certain rules to that game, just like being an athlete. It's like, okay, if I'm a baseball player, I'm on a team and I have to follow the rules of the team. And I might not be in full agreement with all that. It's kind of knowing that given the context of whatever game you're playing, it's like, okay, we're all in agreement that these are the rules we're operating under. How can I align in a way that's more authentic to me so that it's not as heavy to operate in that system?
So if we're thinking about building belief, and we touched on this a little bit at the beginning, right? It's following the plan, taking the steps. But are there any other things when you think about someone who's working on building belief, what would you guide them towards, or things you would encourage them to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main one is just start to get around people that think bigger, that think differently, that are comfortable in their own skin about that. If somebody's taken the journey, they really know that like anything is possible. They've like gone through all the steps, and you just have to get your mind on board. You have to, be disciplined and start to align with these things. So it's like being around people that have that mindset, that can see possibilities for you. My job as a coach is to see possibilities for other people that they can't see for themselves yet. It's just kind of knowing that there is a path to anything you want, and it's built on your intention. And so what support can I find that can speed up this process, that makes it feel empowering? Back to Michael Jordan. I mean, that's what, in my 20s, that's what, like, I just like was obsessed with everything he put out. I was like, I loved his mindset. I loved the way he went about his business. And you just like carry those things. And obviously he was like the best in the world at what he did. If anybody's operating at an extremely high level, they're going to leave some clues. They're going to leave like, you're going to be able to notice their mindset and how they're different, and they don't get pulled into things, and they have like intense focus, and they're very clear about what they want, and they really believe in it. So it's just like, it's being around people or forces that have that strength to them, where it pulls you through all the bullshit. It pulls you through all the doubts, because it's just like, well, if this person's like made it this far, like, there was a process to that. We a lot of times we just look at the finished product and we're just like, oh, that must have like happened overnight or something. But it's like, it's tons of time alone by yourself, doing tons of work when nobody else is watching, and it's uncomfortable, and it's really about conquering yourself, getting really clear on who you are, getting connected to yourself. And once you start to build that foundation, those anchors, like it starts to become unshakable. First and foremost is identifying with people that, you really appreciate their level of strength and clarity and courage, and how they go about their business, and start to, adopt some of the clues that they're modeling. Most famous people have a book they've written, everybody's shooting all these videos all the time, but it's really just, yeah, like, what are some things about this that, how many like books are there on like success principles, right? Like, it's like, all that stuff's like common knowledge, but how you apply it to your life is you have to get really rooted in those ideas of like protecting your energy and the way you carry yourself, and acting in integrity, and yeah, like cutting out the stuff that no longer serves you. It's a process. It's not an overnight thing. It was just like knowing that if I just keep doing these things, I basically create all these skill sets that I can carry over into anything, really. It's a rock solid person's a rock solid person. It doesn't matter what they're doing, they're going to do it well, right? So you could put them in any arena and they would figure it out, because they've kind of built the mindset, they've built the way they carry themselves, and it's like, how you do one thing is how you do everything. It's those ideas. If you don't have those models around you, if you're, raised in a household where, dreams weren't allowed, and you just had to do the normal thing, and if that really like was painful for you, well, like, I need to get out of that environment, and I need to go put myself in a place where people think differently. They think bigger. There's less limitation. in that process, I get to see potentials. I get to see like where I could head if I start to align with these ideas. But it's really, it's up to me to do the work to shed the parts within me that still buy into the old stuff, right? And so that's the cleaning up your beliefs thing. Is like, okay, well, like I was told this my whole life, but like this is what I actually need. And so how can I let go of that part? Like how can I let go of that limitation and see the possibility? And these things, they're kind of hidden sometimes, you know, it's once you think you've conquered it, like you might get another layer still. It's less, it's got less of a pull on you, like the further down the road you get. I still go through doubts. I still have all that stuff, but it's like, I kind of just know that it's just reflections of the past, that it's not actually real. I know that it's just a matter of time before I'm like done with that lesson. You react less and less to the challenges and the struggles because you've built up so much progress that it's just, once again, it's this inevitable thing. Once again, that timeline, that's the tricky part. But if I can find ways to remove the timeline and just enjoy the process where I don't need anything to validate me, I'm just like validating myself every step of the way. That's where I start to carry this energy. And that is where I step out of competition too, where I'm like, I'm just more in tune with what I'm doing rather than focusing on other people and what they're doing. And that's like a big one for athletes is like, oh, I'm competing against this person, but that's a trap. That's a trick because now I'm focused on them. I'm not focused on me. Okay. When I'm focused on me, like that's when I'm able to build myself. Right. And so as the further along we get, we shift those motivations from that external to the internal. And then that's what like really sustains you long term, where you just become less and less attached to outcomes and you're just really enjoying the process. And you know, opportunities just pop in here and there, and that leads you down more roads, right? Things come when you're ready for them. And so we get ready for them by preparing the ground and we really start aligning our life to support it. And we start kind of cutting out the things that aren't working, that are in conflict with what we want. And so it's like I'm creating that space and I'm just taking the steps as they reveal themselves to me in that process. You know, there's going to be opportunities, there's going to be helpful people that start to come into view. I just have to trust that I'm on my way. When you're creating something new, you are on like this like leading edge where you don't really know what's coming next. You have to find some way to sustain yourself. And so that is going to come from self-belief. That's going to come from like, hey, like I'm putting in the work. If I'm putting energy into something, I am building something, whether I can see it or not. And so it takes a lot of faith and trust in that process. The longer you do it, once again, you don't even think about it. It just kind of happens.
If we think about closing this one out, I don't know if you want to kind of look back at this, like we mentioned, kind of the series that has brought us to Permission to Believe, and talk a little bit about key takeaways or thoughts in this sort of process.
I like this kind of series we've been on, right? So it's slowing down, being still, getting connected to what you want to create, and then supporting the beliefs with that, right? We have all these default things that are going on mentally and emotionally. And so we only create that awareness when we start to slow down. We have to take the momentum out of it to see it clearly. And so once we start to create that awareness, that's about sitting with it and trying to understand it. Well, like, why do I do these things? Why do I think this way? And as I start to get that information, now I start to question it. Like, is that really true? Do I really have to believe these things? And then, you know, as I'm like unwinding those ideas, I move into, okay, what is it I want to move towards? What it is I want to create? And then once I have that clarity, now I move into, okay, I need to get my beliefs to line up with that. So the believing is, these are the things that we don't question. These are the things that are our software, is how we run our nervous system, is it's supported by our beliefs. And these are the things that we don't question. We believe they're absolutely true. And I have a choice. I get to choose those if I want to. And so through this work, that's what we do, is we unpack the stuff that's limiting and shutting you down. And we're trying to move into something that supports you. And it just takes a little work to let go of that stuff, let it burn out, and then align with this new version. That's what the process of becoming is. It's really like, I have to see myself differently. I have to shift my identity. I have to dismantle my personality, which is like who I think I am, and I have to align it with who I want to be, right? And so I'm like really creating this new version of myself every step of the way. And it's very it takes time. It takes a lot of reflection. It takes conscious work, but you get to choose. You're not stuck in these habits. You're not stuck in just doing what everybody else wants you to do. It's more of like, this is what I came here to do. And there's a power and strength to that. And so it's about really setting the stage to grow into something more. I need my beliefs to be on board with that, because otherwise I'm going to be fighting myself. I'm going to be in resistance. It's not only to create what you want, but it's like, it's for your health. It's for your own good. Yeah. So I saw a post. It was somebody asked ChatGPT how to live to like 140. And it said the number one thing is to resolve internal conflicts, because the internal conflicts lead to chronic stress. Chronic stress is what like kills everybody, right? So it's like when you're not on board with what you're doing, you're like fighting yourself. So it's like this back and forth creates a lot of tension and stress in the body. And what we're trying to do is resolve those conflicts so that you can just align with what you want rather than have to fight everything every step of the way. That's how we do it, is with our beliefs. It's like I have to learn to see these situations in a way that supports me and allows me to move towards what I want. And in that process, I'm letting go of the conflicts within me of like, I need to perform, I need to be this way in order to get love and all those things, right? I'm letting go of those ideas, and I'm bringing it all back into my control. And so that just means aligning my mindset with what I want. Beliefs are powerful. This is like literally what creates everything. So you look at anybody that's done anything amazing, they just have, tons of self-belief, right?
Yeah.
There's like no question about who they are, but they've probably cultivated that mindset, right? It wasn't just given to them. Sometimes, parents do a pretty good job of building like a lot of confidence, but there's also the other version where you have a lot of self-doubt. And so if that's your case, it takes a little extra work to get to the other side of it, but you really do like dig this deep well within yourself where you feel like anything's possible.
This is like a slight rabbit hole, but what you made me think of when, just for somebody to ask ChatGPT, that is that guy. Have you seen that thing about the guy who's trying to live
Oh
the
yeah.
longest or whatever, and all the stuff he does and
Yeah.
eats and how much he sleeps and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Anyway, made me think of him. Wonder how much internal conflict he has since he has sequestered himself to no real life.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that's part of his protocol would be like finding some internal peace. And
Yeah.
if you're in stress, like that's what ages you. So it's just kind of like, I don't know. I think it's like obvious, but I don't think we're like taught that it's the obvious.
No.
It's just, yeah, the stress is stress, right? Whether it's environmental factors, whether it's like self-imposed on yourself, it's just like, well, yeah, how am I moving through that? If I stay stuck in it forever, that's just like eating away at me day after day, year after year. So, and that's the relationship to yourself. So when we adopt self-compassion and start to resolve these situations, I'm no longer like operating out of that pain. And so my nervous system relaxes and starts to open up.
Awesome. So we're closing the year. I'm, of course, going to ask you to talk about where people can find you and if they're interested in your work and all of that sort of thing. But just curious if you have any thoughts about, closing the year on this podcast. I think this is episode 46, 45 or 46. So yeah, any thoughts on the year?
Yeah, I just think it's been such a cool process. I've really enjoyed it. I love just kind of sitting down and seeing what comes through for the day. And the thing is, this embodies so many of the things I teach and talk about on a regular basis of, just showing up and doing it and seeing what happens and yeah, just enjoying the process. And, I think it's been a super cool learning experience for the both of us, and excited to continue to see where it leads. But yeah, it's about the refinement. It's about the tightening everything up. It's about creating stronger belief. And when you're actually putting energy into things, like that is what allows it to grow. So it's like you have to do the work. There's no shortcuts. And so I'm excited that we're able to finish the year out strong and continue to build. And yeah, so if you're curious on this work, I'd love to talk. So you can visit my website, brandonthielk.com, schedule a free strategy session, or just get to know a little bit about you and share how I can help. moving forward. I commonly help athletes, break through their barriers and limits. In the corporate world, I help people get promoted. It's just about leadership and overcoming imposter syndrome and performance anxiety. I do a lot of work helping people through challenging relationships or trying to attract a new relationship into their life. If any of those things resonate with you, just go ahead and reach out. I'd love to talk. You can also register for my newsletter on my website. I send out the lightning report every Monday with some tips for the week and just a recap of what's going on in the business. If you want to follow along on YouTube and Instagram at Brandon Thielk and TikTok at bthielk, post out there pretty regularly. I'll be doing stuff with LinkedIn and Facebook upcoming, so just continually expanding things. So yeah, just thanks for following along. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and cheers to a big 2026.
For sure. I'm looking forward to 2026. All right. Talk to you later,
All
Brandon.
right, see you.